Welcome to the episode 11 Reality Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down and recapping Love is Blind UK season dose. If you guys follow me, you guys know I was very, very excited about Love is Blind UK season one because it was awesome. It brought some incredible characters out of that show, and we saw some people finding love. And that's the purpose of all of this, right? So today, we're going to recap a little bit about what happened in these first four episodes. We only got four of them. A lot of it spent in the pods. We're going to dive into some interesting choices, some interesting things that unfold, some love triangles, and all that jazz. You know what I mean? So the pods were now open. The pods are open. Some of the quick things that you notice right away, right? You know what I mean? Ashley is a little spunky. You like her energy. Billy, little army boy, and Ashley together, a little cute. Obviously, we have some great one-liners. These people say things different from us here, and I've got a great cackle, or I'm not going to blow my own trumpet. Stuff like that throughout these episodes really do make you laugh quite a bit. But I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that, right? You know what I mean? Because these people are funny because they're of how they say things, but at the same time, let's talk about some of these characters. Let's talk about some of these relationships, right? You know what I mean? Early on, hey, these questions always seem way more mature than they do when you're watching Love is Blind US edition, right? I just feel like there's a level of honest real relationship questions that are being asked. And because of that, you see more maturity, and I feel like the people from the men and women from the US version can learn a lot from these people. Let's see here. Patrick, this guy, he's up here in my top left hand corner. Patrick, man, this guy's hilarious. Like, downright hilarious, right? You know, he wants to listen to his spleen, and that's the best way for him to find love. Him and a news banter between the two, very soft, very warm. Enjoyed them. Sarah Over, I already love her. Because of her name, and she commented on the Instagram post, but she and Cal muck it up as well, right? You know what I mean? Because throughout the process, we always have individuals that are locked in together, and don't really separate from the crowd. You know what I mean? And to me, that's one of the big things when you watch the show here. One of the big couples right off the rip, you know what I mean, is these two. You know what I mean? Billy and Ashley, like they were just locked in. You know what I mean? You couldn't tell these two nothing. You couldn't tell them nothing. And I love that because there's going to be relationships on the show where there's not going to be a love triangle. There's not going to be these things. But Billy and Ashley were like, we're not for the shit. These guys were destined for like engagement, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like we see Billy, we see him get a little bit nervous about breaking down, and the way he was breaking down, she was eating it up. Like, gentlemen, the ladies want to feel that vulnerability. They want to hear you talk about your emotions. And because of that, she felt closer. She felt more connected. And that's why these two were our first engaged couple. Because they were just perfect together. Just from easily one of my favorite couples in the pod stages that we've seen, all the way around. I just really, really love that. Now, let's talk a little bit more about some of these other couples along the way. We're not going to dive into too many spoilers quite yet. We'll talk more about these couples in a second. But let's see here. We're going to skip right over Ashley and Billy. We'll talk more about them in a minute. You know, I just really like them. To me, they work. Period. The only problem that they had was about her being a flight attendant, basically. But ultimately, they talked through all of that. Sarah Over and Cal had a second date. He asked if they will be an issue if they date someone else with it from a different background. They come from two different backgrounds, and I really enjoyed the Indian and the Pakistan aspect of their history of not being okay with dating one another. But unpacking those conversations, unpacking how this all came about, and Sarah Over being honest about the vulnerability of wanting to match the expectations that she's always had for her entire life because she wanted to make sure to make her parents and her family and that proud, but how she's overcome that. Brilliant, right? You know what I mean? You love to hear these type of things. And gee, I want to find love for me. I deserve love. I don't want to be in love, and whoever that may be, that's going to be my person. Whoever my person is going to be my person. So I love that dynamic between these two. I think I love me some Sarah over. Like she's just the bubbly personality. I love her dynamic. I love how she talks. I love her just everything about her. She's great, and I love that we're gonna get moreover Sarah over moreover of her. Katisha, and Javon. He said he's never been in a long-term relationship. Interesting to me because like I'm not sure how I feel about that. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely weird because then you have Katisha who is in a little bit of a love triangle. You know what I mean? We had a little bit of a love triangle for her, right? Katisha and Damali and Javon. These three, two totally different people when it comes down to Damali was just very soft, sweet, sincere, and then Javon was just like cocky, a little bit arrogant, and I'm not really mad at him for that. You know what I mean? Because he brought something to the table, and I think that little peak of interest is really what kind of led her down the path that she goes on eventually. Not that we're gonna get too far ahead of ourselves. You know what I mean? But that being said, um, another kind of love triangle that we had in ourselves here. I lost my train of thought here because I'm trying to switch over to my next love triangle. We had Kieran, Megan, and Sophie. Um, this love triangle, I felt like he went with the right decision in some aspects because he really wanted to unpack Sophie. He wanted to have her open her heart out to him. And he was pleading with her, begging her, begging, like, please work out. You know what I mean? Please tell me about yourself. Please tell me about the vulnerability. Open yourself up to love. Open yourself up to me so that we can explore this connection further. And she just, no matter how hard he tried, it just wouldn't work out. Patrick and Anu, those two were meshing. Those two were meshing, and I like these two. And I thought that there was a good connection between those two, and I felt like we're gonna go places with those two. Obviously, our spleens, you know what I mean? Our spleens were lined up. I'll be honest with you guys. When I was combining the dynamic of like putting together the pieces for the pod, I had these. I was like at the beginning stages. I'm like these two are getting engaged. Like lock it in. You know what I mean? And obviously, things unfold a little bit differently than we kind of expect. Ashley and Billy, their meeting was exactly what I wanted to be. Lock me in, throw away the key. I hope these two make it down the altar. Um, let's see here. Damali and Katisha's this whole dynamic to me, he kind of broke down about the passing of his mom. Katisha's battling and mucking it up between these two, and I really feel like she's struggling mightily about how she's going to really, live with the dynamic of who she's going to pick amongst these two. And then, of course, we have in one of the more explosive moments of this season, Megan got a little charm, a little ornament from Kieran, and she came back and was gloating about it, et cetera, et cetera. She said she felt disrespected by him. She tells Megan she doesn't know what he's telling both of them. Megan is kind of shocked he's even connected with Sophie, which I was like, damn. But then Sophie planted that in person. I couldn't believe that she did that, right? You know what I mean? I was kind of shocked by that dynamic as well. Jed and Barda, couple that we really haven't talked about quite yet. This is an interesting couple. He thinks about the dynamic here, and I love Barda's story. Immigrated when she was 5. Her family didn't speak English. She started working at 13, so she's kind of hold down the fort herself. I love that. I love that she's willing to talk about and be open about her journey and her family's journey, and she's ready to throw down and she's ready to be the A1 plus one. I can do it. I don't need nobody type of thing. And that's how certain people kind of have to live their lives. You know what I mean? And I just yeah. And then of course we had Sarah over. Where's she at? Do I have her in here? Did I not share it? I don't have it. I don't have it. Sarah over and Cal meet up, and I love the dynamic here between these two too. I'm a big fan of Sarah over and Cal. I love them coming together. I love them becoming one, and I love how they brought things to the table. I don't have their picture lined up, and I'm very upset about it because I really like these two quite a bit. And watching the conversations between them two was refreshing. And I think that them being our second couple to be engaged is really just they complement each other very, very well. Javon, he wrote some bars for Contessa. She was unsure. She's still unsure who she wants. Kieran and Sophia time. She said you gifted the thing with Megan. He said you made your intentions, kind of clear. He said it is a social experiment. I'm trying to see where my chips lie. He said if you feel disrespected, she said it's a shit feeling. And if you truly care, you wouldn't have put me in this position. I'm a prize. I'm a catch. I'm not here to beg you to love me. And you know what? I can appreciate that dynamic, but to me, I look forward to the mixer because look, I mean, let's be real. At the end of the day, I mean, Sophie is a catch. So is Megan, but Sophie is a catch. Um, Things get really weird between Patrick and Anu. This is a couple that were so hot and cold, and I'm like trying to figure out. I kind of felt bad for her because she said she's confused the fuck. He said the connection is gone, the energy's not right, and I was blown away. You know what I mean? Like just blown away by their dynamic because again, I'm like convinced that they're gonna lock in and he was like, "Oh, hey, will you sing me a song?" And she was like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. And because of that, we later see them meet, and she said she felt encouraged to write because of their connection and wants to sing for Patrick. But he goes, I don't know if I want to hear the song. He says, I don't want you to give a song to someone undeserving of that song. He said he has enjoyed this experiment, but I'm going to follow my spleen. And he breaks his heart. It breaks his heart to tell her that he is breaking up with her. Whoa! Whoa! And then just kept on piling on top of her. It's like picking a chair up and just hitting her with a steel chair over and over and over and over. And I was like, what is going on right now? Like, I was blown away by what transpired between these two because I fully expected these two to get engaged. I really, really, really did. But then we go from here, and then Jed and Barda, these two get engaged. And I'll be honest with you, on paper, it doesn't feel like it will work, but it just works in the pods. How that moves beyond that will be definitely interesting to see. Let's see here. Kieran and Megan. Obviously, once he has made his decision, he has moved on. And you know what? I really dug this. I want to throw it out here and say that I don't feel like they did Megan justice with this photo here. She's beautiful, and it's not to say she's not beautiful in this photo, but yeah, it was just kind of they kind of did her the wrong way. Let's see here. Katisha is chatting with Damala, and she said, so she told him basically that, hey, you have nothing to worry about. Absolutely, positively nothing to worry about. I am locked in with you. I have made my decision. And then she goes and has a chat with Javon and was like, oh my God, my decision has become 10 times harder. And I'm like, what is going on? What just happened? And Damali's going in there and ready to fucking propose to her. And she said, you know what? There isn't an easy way to say this. I'm going to go with the other guy. He questions saying her decision. Um, you know, questioning her decision about why she changed her mind. He said, I was ready to propose. She said, sometimes it wasn't on the romantic side. He kind of sees himself out. And the guys are even questioning why she U-turned the way that she did. Um, I, I was shocked. I was shocked by this entire scenario. I just blown away by what unfolded. Obviously, yeah, just absolutely shocked. But then, of course, we had there we found it, baby. Let's go. Sarah over and Cal met. I love these two so much. I just love them. Shipping these two quite a bit. And but yeah, so as a result of our couples here, you know what I mean? We're gonna see our couples, and I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of our trios here because now we just have full on couples. But one of the more interesting things is when we moved. Like we didn't very like it wasn't very long, right? You know what I mean? They weren't in the process very long of like, hey, it was, the pods were for 3.5 episodes, which kind of shocked me. You know what I mean? So our couples were Ashley and Billy. Obviously, got to get rid of these two. Close. Ashley and Billy. We had Sarah Over and Cal. We have Kieran and Megan, Jed and Barda. And then, of course, we have, where is my last couple? They're right here. And then, of course, we have Javan and Katisha. So interesting here, and we'll talk about what my process is and how I think they're going to land. But when we made it to Cyprus, the island of love, I you could tell that chemistry is going to work for some of these couples, and some of them it might not work, right? You know what I mean? You can kind of get a feel for that. With Barda, she's a little nervous because she said that Cal said his type is typically blondes. You know what I mean? And I feel like when you have the conversations of saying, "Hey, you're typical," not Jed. It wasn't Jed. Who said it? Who was smitten by blood? Blondes, guys. No, it was Cal. Cal said is his typical type is his typical type was blondes, and I'm like, I just kind of weirded out by that scenario because I'm like, bro, you got a dime in front of you, and it just makes them feel insecure, and she found it kind of felt insecure in there. Um, but yeah, she said she was a little sad in that mixer and felt like she's second guessing everything and she kind of self sabotages. And Ash is like, hey, you need to open up and be honest. And I love that. The mixer was fine. It wasn't really overly kind of crazy. Some people are knocking boots and we kind of expect those type of things. But and then Cal pulled Katisha for a chat about Damali because of how she handled it, and she really didn't care to have that conversation, which was kind of funny. But she was just like, whatever, you know what I mean? Just deal with it, type of thing. I guess I'll answer your questions. But all right. So before we go, we like to make predictions. I want you to make predictions in the comments below. Please do. I'd love to hear all your thoughts. Who do you think's going to make it? Who do you think's not going to make it? It's very, very vital, very important to this process. But first up, we obviously have Billy and Ashley. I'm locked in. I'm locked into these two. I want them to get married. I hope they get married, and I'm predicting they get married, right? Number two, Sarah Over and Cal. I'm going to say no. I want to see more, but I'm cautiously optimistic about these two. Megan and Kieran, I'm going to say no as well. I think they can, but again, based on the first batch, what we've seen on the surface, I'm saying no. Barda and Jed, lock it in, they're getting married. And then Javon and Katisha, nope, no getting married here. So that's my predictions. Folks, what did you guys think of the first batch of Love is Blind UK? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to tune in on Sundays as Ashley and I will break down this entire season piece by piece together. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back next week.